Okay, so I'm back again with Sharon on my CRE number 2 for the interview. So this week, we all played a game called Spent, an online game that kind of just like talked you through, kind of put you in a situation, a scenario with like money and like having responsibilities and all that. It was just a game to see how far you can make it and stuff. So what were your results?
So I made it to day 29 and then ran out of money. So I didn't make it through the entire month.
Okay. So I have some like questions and stuff about the game. So the first question is, how accurate would you say the game is at representing the experience of the working poor based on course media lecture and your own experiences? So you don't really have an idea about our course media and lectures, but basically the parts that relate to this game or whatever from our lectures just kind of talked about like the class, like social stratification, which is the division of society into groups. Um, and then social class is a stratification system based on access to and control of resources, privileges, and rewards. So these are just kind of like some of like the key parts of my notes from our lectures that kind of have something to do with this activity, the CRE, so that you kind of when answering the question if you want to mention the lectures, but it's mainly going to be about your own personal experiences since you don't have too much information on that. And then some other things from like the class lectures and stuff um would be like, so cultural capital was another big thing, which is the general cultural background, knowledge, disposition, and skills passed from one generation to another. So it keeps you in what they say the 1%, which is kind of like rare. Like it's kind of like the rich people, you can kind of say the 1%. So it's like, for an example, like education would be like that specific university, like that specific one, if that makes sense. And then like occupation would be like the investors, the executives, and then usually their income is like $500,000 plus. So like it's that 1%. So we learned a lot about that and stuff, and like about time and money and stuff like that. And another kind of key point. So last CRE was kind of about empathy, which is this we can kind of connect and relate. So empathy walls keep us from understanding the problems. And can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it cut out on my end. But the empathy walls keep us from understanding problems in our society like poverty, which is a really big issue. Um, so that's kind of just like some of our lecture notes that I can try to explain that have to do with this game and such. And then our course media, kind of the same thing. But this question's mainly just going to be let's see, where did my questions go? This question is just mainly going to be like, how accurate would you say the game is at representing the experience of the working poor base based on your own experiences?
So I think it's fairly accurate for the category you mentioned of the working class poor. I don't know that I would consider my experiences necessarily the working class poor. I am the working class, and I do experience and have experience having to go from paycheck to paycheck and, deciding what's priority. But it's hard for me to fully have experienced what people in these scenarios may truly experience. So I think it's fairly accurate, but as I was going through the scenarios, I mean, I have to say that I had a little bit of bias because I feel like the options were limited. So fairly representative, good representation, I think, but I can't fully relate.
Okay, yeah. I thought it did a pretty good job also, and like gave a lot of different scenarios and situations for all people to kind of get a feel and be able to relate. So another question is there anything about the game experience that surprised you?
Um, to surprise me, I don't know necessarily. I mean, I guess it just put it into perspective because the scenarios are so different than what I actually experienced. So, I mean, I guess in a way that was surprising. And, sometimes when I had to make decisions, sometimes they were guided, based on how I was taught. And sometimes they were based on, what do I think is going to get the best result. And there's a few decisions I made in the process of the game that I was kind of worried about. Well, if I make this decision, this is probably going to happen, and then it didn't. Or then again, there were some decisions I made where I didn't expect something to happen, and it did. So some unexpected surprises, I guess.
Yeah, I can agree. Is there anything that you think was missing or that you disagreed with while playing this game?
I touched on it a little bit earlier. Is even for any class of society, I think that it limits the options. Because, like I said, I feel like in my life, I've experienced similar scenarios, but wasn't just limited to, 2 or 3 choices like the game limits you to. And I think there are other resources and other possibilities out there. But I mean, I guess again, the purpose of this game was to make us realize that maybe for other people, they don't see or aren't aware of other resources, which me being in a different kind of class maybe puts me in that different perspective. So I think, does that answer that question?
Yes, and I can kind of agree because I mentioned in my earlier interview that like one of my hard things was when the dog situation, like my dog was sick or whatever, and like I had the choice to let it suffer for free or put it down for $50 or take it to the vet, which is like $400, and I only had like $200. Well, like I feel like another option could have been like maybe getting like a little help from somebody or getting a loan or something, but to help my dog, that wasn't an option. And then like the next day I got paid, of course, so like I put my dog down for $50, but then the next day I got paid. So I feel like there could have been more options in that situation. I would have been more glad if there was, but
Right. And sometimes in some of the scenarios, some scenarios it did give you an option to reach out to people, some it didn't. And I feel like I would have people to be able to reach out to. But then again, thinking on it overall, I guess a lot of people in other scenarios don't have other people they can rely on.
yeah. And then the final question is, if you think something is unrealistic, why do you think the game was designed that way, or why do you think the game did not include certain certain options?
Well, I guess just like I've said before, I felt like from my perspective, the game didn't give all the possible options out there. And looking back and, kind of its purpose was to show everybody that it's not as easy for each individual person. And so maybe by making it a little bit more unrealistic and limiting the options, that it gives us a reality of how it really is for some people. So, for the people that truly are in that strict of a scenario, there were some hard decisions that had to be made. And of course, we went through it knowing, oh, this is just a game and it's just for fun. But I guess the unrealism in the game did make me think about a lot of close friends or options that they can also go. And so their choices in situations would be just like that of the game.
Yeah, I can agree. You kind of cut out there a little bit at the end, but I was able to kind of hear most of the important part. But that's all the questions I have for you. So thank you.
You're welcome.